And we are live. It's Dr. Justin Marcagiani in the house with Evan Brand. Today, we are going to be talking about organic acid testing. Organic acids are wonderful technology that we use with almost all patients to really look under the metabolic hood to see what is going on, whether it's functional metabolic issues, deficiencies, certain nutrient deficiencies, gut imbalances, detoxification problems, methylation issues. We were really able to kind of peel back the onion, so to speak, and look deeper under the hood. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing really good. Excited to dive in. I can say this with confidence because I've actually spoke to the lab about this, that you and I personally, between us clinically, we are in the top 5 of practitioners worldwide running the most organic acids testing.
Wow, isn't that cool? I didn't even know that. I knew we were up there, but that's really cool to hear.
Yep. So what does that mean? Well, that just means that we've looked at so many of these that we can really get good at what we're doing. And most importantly, we can help you, the listener, figure out exactly how your symptoms are linked into a particular body system dysfunction. So we're going to talk today about how the gut, you can find information about the gut via urine. And we talk about stool testing a lot, but in some cases, the urine is actually a little bit better for investigating the gut, which is pretty interesting. So we'll dive into that. We're going to talk about energy markers and how your energy and fatigue levels can be tied in. Also, in the mood category, we're going to get into possibly depression, anxiety, and how that could be tied in, or even OCD behavior, depression, winter depression. And then we're going to get into nutritional markers. And I mean, there's just so much information from one cup of pee. It's like magic.
Yeah, we can get a lot. And again, when we're looking at gut issues, I always tell patients, we're always going to look at a gut test, like a good high quality gut test. There's a couple of tests that we use, but one's the genetic test that looks at the gut microbiome, infections, H. pylori, bacterial overgrowth, inflammation markers, digestion markers, immune markers. So we're always going to look at a comprehensive gut test to see what's going on. But it's nice to look at the organic acids because sometimes, most of the time, I would say they kind of correlate, where if we see some kind of bacterial overgrowth or a fungal overgrowth, it will a lot of times say it on there. I do find the organic acids do pick up fungal overgrowth far more often than stool tests do. A lot of times, if you're looking at under the threshold level of fungal stuff, we do see a lot of fungal stuff. It's not at the positive level, but if we see it there at all, we typically consider it a problem. And then third, we may not see total congruence. Like there may say gut issues on an organic acid test, but not on a gut test. And guess what? If we just see it anywhere once, then that's enough for us to kind of move forward on it. We don't need total agreement. It's just an extra check. It's an extra net to catch anything that could be missing. And of course, we get deeper look in what's happening nutritionally, methylation, B vitamins, sulfur metabolism, detoxification, mitochondrial function. So we really get a good window at what's happening up underneath the hood.
Yeah, I want to show you this 3-year-old. If you'll let me share my screen, I tried to click on it. It says you got to enable it for me. But I've got a 3-year-old little girl as a client who has been to conventional doctors and she can't get help. And the pediatrician, of course, is just saying, hey, possibly do some vitamin D. And that's really it. Okay, now I can share. So let me pull this up here. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So the people watching too, if you're listening via audio, I encourage you to check out Dr. Justin's Justin Health YouTube channel. If you're listening and you want to see the visual here, we're going to try to make sure that those doing audio only still get the gist of it. But really what we're trying to find here are high markers. That's when you really see problems. And you could see for this little girl, keep in mind, this is a 3-year-old little girl. And the parent said that the girl is literally addicted to sugar and she refuses to eat anything else. And she has a ton of symptoms: skin, mood, gut, behavior, just all kind of stuff. And look at this tartaric acid, which is an indication of aspergillus growing in her gut. We want less than 3.9. She's 147. I think this is the highest I've ever seen. And sadly, it's in a child. And then, of course, arabinose, you and I have talked about that being the gas that Candida produces. We want less than 56. She's off the charts at 226. So
That's
there.
Really high. That's really high.
This is the amazing thing. In 5 seconds of us looking at this page, we know this person's already colonized for mold and they were in a moldy house in Texas, had major mold exposure. And now we know that she's got a major Candida problem. So even if we just had that data and just pursued those 2 points, we would get a hell of a lot more results than what you would get if you went to the pediatrician and said, hey, I think she's got a problem. They're not going to know anything about these tests or these markers.
Plus, in the conventional medical world, I mean, frankly, Candida doesn't really exist to people like that. right? Conventional medical doctors, they're very rarely saying, hey, candida is a problem. Usually it's one of those things they just say, oh yeah, that's just kind of what natural medicine thinks everything is the problem is candida. Not necessarily, but if we have objective markers that show it, it's good to really know that. And conventional medicine isn't typically doing testing that's sensitive enough to really pick it up.
Yeah. And I know you run a lot of the Genova panels. And the reason
Hmm.
that I use the Great Plains is just because I like to run the combo a lot. When I've kind of
Right.
attracted a lot of moldy people. And so we like to run the mycotoxin combo test. So 1 cup
Yep.
of pee and we get 2 labs. So that's why I do the Great Plains. But the rest of page 1 was okay. She didn't show any major bacterial overgrowth. She was starting to creep up there on one of these markers, but overall it was decent. So let's move on. Let's look at, so this is where all the fatigue is coming from. They said that this kid is just exhausted, and then they described it as poor tone, where she literally just lays on the floor all the time. Justin, I don't know if you've ever even seen anything this high. I mean, look at these oxalates, 677 off the charts. We know candida's a piece of it, but man, and then look at the, I call it succinic, but I think it's actually pronounced succinic.
Succinic, yeah. And just so you know, oxalates a lot of times, especially in a kid, it's probably not like I would never tell a mom like, oh my gosh, like most green vegetables have oxalates in it. So I wouldn't be telling any mom like, oh my gosh, you need to avoid green vegetables unless there was some kind of oxalate crystal issue in regards to kidney or significant muscle or joint issues. I would just think that, hey, those oxalates are probably high because of the candida. Candida can really increase oxalate production and decrease oxalate synthesis. So I would lean more on the candida being the oxalate problem. What do
And
you
I
think?
think this is huge because you have some unnamed people writing books and fear mongering people about oxalates. And now you have people paranoid of vegetables. Like you just mentioned, you've got people that are like cutting vegetables out because they're worried about the oxalates. But you and I've seen personally and clinically hundreds and hundreds of point reductions in the oxalic acid just by treating the candida. So yeah, I would agree that, and we know she's not eating vegetables. So we know that that's not where it's coming from.
Yeah, and so we know if they have a candida issue and they have a whole bunch of sweet cravings, exactly. They're not eating a whole bunch of vegetables. That's not the issue. They're eating a whole bunch of crap, and we don't want to give them any more ammo to let their let their kiddo eat crap, right? So we want to definitely get some good nutrition in there. More than likely, most of the oxalate issues are going to be from the candida. Now, again, some of the exceptions may be if we have vulvodynia, excessive joint pain from oxalate crystals, maybe kidney stones or some really kidney pain issues. It'd have to be something really clinically significant. If not, we're not going to worry about the oxalates. We're going to think of that more as an effect than a cause. The cause really being candida and the effect being more of the oxalate as the cause. So I always, when I'm looking at these labs of patients, I always have them in their head draw a line. One side's cause, one side's effect. Effects we watch and monitor. Causes we treat and work on supporting. And so it's easy for people to look at an effect, think that is the cause, and treat the effect. And then a lot of times the result won't be as good, or you do things that aren't necessary, like cut out foods that may be really healthy for your kid.
Totally. Yeah. Same thing for the citric acid here on 29. For those listening, we're looking at these little triangles. Basically, the higher the number goes, in general, the more of a problem or dysfunction we have. And we want citric acid, maybe somewhere around 200 would be moderate. This poor little girl is off the charts almost at 1300. And we know citric acid will go high with candida and fungal overgrowth in general. But all this succinic acid and malic acid, oxyglutaric, these things are off the chart. So this just indicates an insane amount of mitochondrial dysfunction. And that's why this girl is literally so exhausted. She can't go to school. The parents can hardly get her out of bed. And she's 3 years old. I mean, my daughter, she's 4 now, but when she was 3, I mean, she bounces out of bed and she's just running, going and putting her bird feeders up. I mean, this kid wakes up with energy. So you can just see these symptoms that kids face, and the parents just think, oh, they're just like bored or they're just tired, but they don't think, wow, she could have a ton of mitochondrial damage.
100%. Yep, 100%. So looking at a bunch of these things here, I think we hit a lot of good things out of the gates. Let me just keep on rolling here. So actually, do you want to hit a couple more things? I'm going to show some of my organic acid testings in a second.
Yeah,
Anything else you
yeah.
want to show on this?
Yeah, let me just show this one page here. So some of the nutritional markers you're going to get, we're going to see here that she was very deficient in riboflavin. The higher it goes, actually, the more deficient. And then, of course, vitamin C is in Charlie, is just completely toast. And then we've got some other markers, ammonia excess and some GI bacteria markers. But overall, the main things I wanted to hit were just massive mitochondrial damage, massive colonization of mold and candida. So don't think that just because your kid is young, that means they don't have permission to be sick. I mean, I started treating my daughter when she was 2 because she had parasites. And so I feel bad because, these kids, when they're really young like this, they may not be able to express all of their pains and their symptoms, but hopefully there's enough, whether it's skin or mood or behavior or sleeping issues, that there's enough justification for the parents to reach out, run the labs, and then we can really show them on paper what their kids just can't verbalize.
100%. I think it's really good points. Now, just to kind of give people a little understanding how we interpret or how we look at some of the labs, pretty simple. So we want some of the markers here on the labs to be in the middle distribution. So if you look at my screen here, can you see my screen, Evan?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Excellent. I'm going to just make sure that you can see me as well along with that. Okay. So in general, we want these markers to be somewhat in the 2nd to 4th quintile distribution. If they go on the extreme high or low, we always get a little bit concerned. And we get more concerned if it's near a red area. So there are some of these markers are two-tailed, meaning let's say number 7 citrate, where there's a red on the left and the right. And some are one-tailed, or say most are one-tailed, like adipase, superate, ethylmalonate, where there's only a red to the right. Does that make sense?
It does.
So two-tailed means red on both sides. One-tailed means red on one side. And of course, if markers are low and we're closer to a red, that matters more. So we want there to be somewhat distribution in the middle. Extreme highs or lows are more concerning, especially if they're grouped together. Now, so in this section here, fatty acid metabolism, we see them on the lower side. Not as big of a deal because this is only one tail, but we do keep that in mind. We look in the carbohydrate metabolism. You see you're in the middle here with L-lactate, which is one of the more important markers. Beta hydroxybutyrate being higher isn't that big of a deal because that's a ketone. That's a ketone. That's not that big of a deal. L-lactate is a marker for CoQ10 typically, and pyruvate is a marker typically for B vitamins and B complex as well. So this being a little bit low, less than detectable limit, isn't that big of a deal as long as you don't have a whole bunch of them there, but we do keep an eye on it. And I always tell patients, chronically high organic acids, that's like a demand issue. So it's like you're making $1 million a year, but spending $2 million a year. You have a lot of income coming in, but your demand for that money, for those resources is high. So functionally, we're still in debt, right? And when we're chronically low, especially in areas where it's two-tailed and red, that's a sign that there's a depletion issue. Depletion, it's like you're making $10,000 a year, but spending 100, right? You're making a lot less, right? There's not a lot coming in, but you're still spending more than you're making, right? So both, in the end, you're in debt. Okay. That's kind of the analogy I give. And I always tell patients, well, what's the root cause? Like, we always want to be focused on the root cause. We may be doing palliative support. People can feel better in the moment, but we always want to get to root cause support. Now, with organic acids, pretty simple. First is going to be diet. It could be a macro issue and or a micro issue, meaning if someone's eating that looks like a healthy diet, but it's not organic, well, it may be significantly deficient in certain nutrients, right? If you look at Joel Salatin, who runs Polyface Farm, he sent his organic eggs to the lab, and they looked at the amount of folate that was in his organic eggs. There was 20 times more folate in his organic eggs than the typical conventional store-bought eggs. So organic matters. It's not just pesticide. Pesticide is important. It's a big part, but it's also nutrition. So of course, eating organic makes a bigger difference. Food quality makes a big difference. And then number 2 is going to be absorption. Absorption can be affected by gut microbiome issues, parasites, fungal overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth. It could be affected by low stomach acid and enzyme and bile salt levels. It can also be affected by food allergies. Chronic food allergens or chronic inflammation in the intestines can drive it too. Number 3, just general stress. Stress can be categorized as physical stress, right? You're exercising too hard. Maybe you're too sedentary. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. Maybe your emotional stress is off the charts, and that's throwing off your cortisol and your adrenals and your hormones. Stress plays a big role. Number 4 is toxicity. Toxicity primarily from pesticides, heavy metals, mold toxins. Pesticides, heavy metal, mold toxins are biggies. And then number 5 is genetic. Genetic could mean, hey, you just need more magnesium. You need more amino acids. You need more B vitamins than the average person just for who you are. Could be an MTHFR issue. You need good high quality folate. That cheap folic acid stuff is not cutting it. You need more methylated B vitamins. So genetically, there could be just some imbalances in regards to what your biochemical needs. I think Roger Williams wrote a book called Biochemical Individuality, talking about people's need for certain nutrients can be exponentially higher than someone else's. And so those are kind of the big 5 things out of the gate. Any comments on that, Evan?
Yeah. So one thing I think it's important to point out is people get really caught up in the DNA and the genetic testing, and I'm
Yeah,
cool with it.
mistake.
I'm cool with it, but I just want to highlight something you said here, which is that we're really going to be looking more at the downstream effect of any of those genetic predispositions here, correct? Meaning, let's say that there is a genetic predisposition to needing some more folate or some B vitamins upstream, but then that manifests downstream. We're going to see it here. We're going to see the citric acid cycle. We may see some things off for this carbohydrate metabolism section. So what I'm saying is not that the genetic stuff is useless, but that you and I are going to see the result of those genetic issues here. Is that correct? And you might not need that genetic data because you're going to be looking here at what the actual body has. Is that true?
100%. Yep. 110%.
Because
And
people send us the SNPs, right? Well, I've got this SNP or this genetic this or this genetic that, but I really would prefer to look at the organic acids maybe in addition to, but if I'm without the genetic information, I still feel confident in what we're going to do and the results we can achieve with just the oat test alone.
yeah, here's one image here. I'll put it on screen. Okay, these are two twins here called Otto and Ewald. Can you see it?
Yep.
These are exact twins. Okay. So one engaged in, lifting weights, eating better, the other one not. I mean, you can see, look at the difference, fuller hair, fuller muscles, right? Same DNA. Remember, twins have the exact same DNA. All right. So this is important. So we know our genetics can change. The reason why I don't like the genetic test as much is because you could have someone being an alcoholic, eating terribly, someone totally changing their life and eating incredibly healthy. And guess what? The DNA looks exactly the same. So
Yeah,
it's a snapshot in time. It's not functional, does not change based on your lifestyle decisions. And so you can see here, we know, right, this is the same DNA here. These are two German twins, like 1969, same DNA. Look at the difference. Okay.
yeah, people on audio listening, he's showing a picture of these guys that are twins. You could see same height, same looks, everything. But then one guy is, who knows, maybe 130 pounds. The other guy's like 170 and just ripped, just shredded muscles.
Yep. And so basically it's the epigenetics, it's the functional progress that we're looking at. So just kind of put that there. And again, anyone listening, we're trying to do enough of a good job describing what's happening. So if you're in your car driving, just kind of listen to us. If not, we'll put a link right below to the YouTube video. So if you guys want to engage in the video, feel free. Let me go back to the organic acids though. So we talked about fatty acid metabolism, carb metabolism, energy production. So we like this to be somewhat in the middle, 7 through 14. There's a bunch of these organic acids here. The names don't necessarily matter. Citrate, cysticonatate, isocitrate, alpha-ketoglutarate, succinate, fumarate, malate, hydroxymethylglutarate. Doesn't matter, right? That's just focus on what it means. These typically correlate with nutrients like B vitamins and CoQ10 and chromium and arginine and cysteine and B complex and manganese and magnesium and lipoic acid. So when we see deviations high or low, especially a whole section high or low, that tells us those nutrients are going to be burnt up, depleted. And it just gives us a window of what's happening. And we got to look at it in correlation to someone's lifestyle, how good their diet is, how crappy their absorption is. All that matters. I always try to look at the patient's top 2 or 3 symptoms. I try to correlate it to the systems that may not be functioning optimally based on the organic acid. And then I support based on that. Because there's a lot of things you could support at all times. At the back page, they'll typically give you a whole bunch of things to recommend here. I ignore that because there's a clinical art to this. And we're doing a lot of different things at the same time. We're not just like running this test and just saying, here, take these supplements. We're really trying to look at the whole big picture. Okay.
I kind of skipped over some of the importance of the neurotransmitters. In the beginning, I mentioned we're going to hit some brain chemistry stuff, depression, and some mood issues.
Let's do it now. So here we are. Let's hit it right now. So just real quick, here's some B vitamins above too, right? So alpha keta beta methylvalerate, this is a marker for B complex. So it's on the fence. So that could be a burning issue. You just highlighted neurotransmitters. Well, guess what? Xanthiourinate's a really big neurotransmitter because that's, or I should, a neurotransmitter substrate because that's a marker for B6. B6 is incredibly important for neurotransmitter synthesis. Okay. And then here are your methylation markers, methylmalonate and 4-aminoglutamate. Methylmalonate correlates with B12. 4-aminoglutamate correlates with folate. And again, B12 is one of the best markers to look at is methylmalonate. So methylmalonate goes downstream to succinic acid or succinate, when there's adequate levels of B12. So it goes methylmalonate to succinate, and we need B12 to help that conversion happen. So if we don't have enough B12, methylmalonate goes high. And so it's hard to people to wrap their heads around because they think low equals low, high equals high, right? Not necessarily. Think of high as the demand, high as the RPMs on your car, and then 4-aminoglutamate. And a lot of times people could have MTHFR issues, and guess what? We don't see it on here. Sometimes we do. So if people are like, well, MTHFR, yeah, you may see it on here. If it's a functional imbalance, you may not if you're eating lots of leafy greens, egg yolks, and maybe taking a B vitamin complex with natural folate and methylated B12.
Let's make a quick side note here. B12 injections. Yes, no, stupid, smart.
Depending on how bad your gut health is. Ideally, if we're doing some kind of a really good high quality methylated B12 or adenosylate or adenosol or hydroxyl and or some kind of something sublingual, usually we can not necessarily need it if we're doing high enough of a dose and or sublingual. But if someone maybe has really bad Crohn's or ulcerative colitis and blood's coming out of their stool and we see markers on their differentials, high MCH, high MCV, high MCHC, and or high methylmalonic acid, we may want to just do a one-off injection to buy us time. But most of the time it's not necessary because when patients come in to see us, we're doing all kinds of diet changes and lifestyle changes a month before these tests even come in. So then the time we get these tests in, usually we've calmed down most of any acute issues to begin with. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I just see a lot of these pop-up IV clinics going around and people are paying a really pretty penny for some of these injectable B vitamins versus some of the pricing that you and I offer on some of our professional methylated sublingual nutrients. It's maybe a quarter of the cost, if not half the cost. And you don't have to get an injection. You don't have to travel to a clinic and sit in the chair. You can do it at home and you can fix it. So yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I would say depending on how acute the issue is, maybe that may dictate. And also, if you're acutely sick, that may help kind of as a palliative thing. But in general, it's not practical from a day in, day out standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then we have our neurotransmitters. So vanilmandulate and homovanillate, they're two sides of the same sword. So vanilmandulate's a marker for adrenaline. Homovanillate's a marker for dopamine. Now, in the neurotransmitter synthesis pathway, it goes phenylalanine, tyrosine, L-DOPA, epinephrine, norepinephrine. So what does that mean? It means homovanillate looks at dopamine, right? So dopamine will eventually go downstream to adrenaline. It's the next step in the cascade if there is stress going on. So when you support adrenaline, you're also supporting dopamine. When you support dopamine, you're also supporting adrenaline. And you may not have both of these out of balance. So in this case, this person's having more of an adrenaline issue. Now, by supporting the adrenaline, we will be supporting dopamine. But if you have a chronic adrenaline issue, you will eventually be depleting dopamine because it just comes from it. It's the precursor. Vanilmandulate's the postcursor. Dopamine or homovanillate's the precursor. Does that make sense?
So let me say it in another way. You're going to see a depletion of your endorphins before you see a depletion of dopamine.
Oh, no, you could see both. You could see a dopamine issue before endorphin. That's going to be all based on genetics. But if you only see one issue going on, it's just a matter of time before that second issue kicks in.
I'd say 75, 80% of the time, you and I are seeing both at the same time, low endorphins and low
So think of it as like this. You have two credit cards, right? You're only in debt on one credit card. Well, if you keep up your spending habits, it's just a matter of time before you're in debt on both credit cards. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, just like that. And then 5-hydroxy, and these are all metabolites. So these organic acids, they're metabolites of amino acids. And these metabolites give us a window into certain nutrients. And so as long as you have an understanding on what the nutrients are and what the area is, the actual organic acid doesn't necessarily matter that much, FYI.
I think of it and kind of refer to it as like the fingerprint of what's going on, or maybe the ash in the bonfire. You can see the evidence of what's happened. Yep. You're just kind of analyzing the ash and looking at the fingerprints. Yeah.
Patients usually think of it as like gas in the gas tank. Is it high or is it low? I'm like, nope, it's RPMs in the engine. RPMs, is it overly high, overly low, overly high demand, overly low on the stimulation.
Scroll down to that detox marker. I want to see what you can tell us about that one there, that 2-methylhydrolate.
Let me just finish the neurotransmitters real fast. So 5-hydroxyindoleic acid, that's a serotonin marker. So serotonin plays roles in motility, mood, sleep, happiness, another big one. Kynurenate plays a really important role with B6, right? B6 helps with the synthesis of all these nutrients, all these neurotransmitters. And of course, kinourenate's brother or sister is xanthuronate. So this person has high xanthuronate and high kinourenate. So we know there's definitely a B6 problem, and B6 plays a really important role in neurotransmitters. So if you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to just take some tyrosine or phenylalanine, yeah, probably not the best, okay? Because you need the other nutrients there. And then also picolinate, chronically low, is a big sign of low amino acids. And if we have low amino acids, there could be a catabolic stress issue. You're just burning up a lot because you're a lot of catabolic stress, cortisol imbalances, hyperadrenal stuff. It could also be you're not getting enough protein, you're not eating enough, vegetarian, vegan, not eating enough, or you're not digesting enough. It could be all of the above. And then we have our oxidative stress. Oxidation is losing electrons. When you lose electrons and you don't have enough antioxidants like vitamin C or A or E, or good antioxidants like curcumin or resveratrol, those help donate electrons. And if we aren't donating electrons when we lose them, we can create free radical damage, and that can chip away at our DNA and cause our DNA to age rapidly. Any question on that last part?
No, we're good. Let's run into the detox. This is the fun part.
Yeah. So this person right here has very depleted detoxification. So the most important markers here are these two-tailed markers at the bottom: pyroglutamate and sulfate. Very important. They all correlate with glutathione. So when I see low sulfate and low pyroglutamate, that almost always means a glutathione depletion. So the big neurotransmitters here are N-acetylcysteine, cysteine, taurine, glutamine, methionine, right? Glycine. They all play a very important role in making our tripeptide most powerful antioxidant, glutathione.
Let me pose a question to you that some people will have at this section. Is they're going to say, okay, you mentioned glutathione depletion. So are you saying that there was a toxin issue, maybe a mold toxin that depleted the glutathione, or you're saying that you may not even have the raw materials necessary to synthesize glutathione, right? So it could be a two-pronged issue. It could be a depletion of glutathione due to toxins plus the inability to make it. Is that what you're saying this could show?
Yes. So it could be one more variable. So one, it could be a combination of exposure to toxins that are stressing out that pathway. Two, you're not getting enough good exposure to sulfur amino acids. Three, it could be you're not digesting your protein well, right? And four, when you get stressed, part of the whole catecholamine, adrenaline, noradrenaline pathway requires sulfur to help with that conversion and metabolism of healthy neurotransmitters. So you actually need sulfur on the neurotransmitter. So if you're chronically stressed, you could also deplete sulfur that way.
So eat your broccoli, folks, as long as you can tolerate it.
Well, more importantly, yes, there's a lot of sulfur there, but more importantly, like your animal protein. Like you're going to get a lot of sulfur in there, but from a bulk amino acid standpoint, you're going to get way more sulfur in protein from a caloric standpoint. As a percentage of the food, you're going to get a lot of sulfur in broccoli, but it's just low calorie, right? So you get more from a caloric standpoint with high quality animal products, or honestly, whey protein or collagen protein is excellent too for that too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If somebody's listening and they either maybe were previously vegetarian or couldn't get back into the meats, maybe they were having issues digesting meats, we've got some really good like grass-fed wheys or some collagen, hydrolyzed beef proteins. Those work amazing. Yeah, or even just free-form amino acids that are kind of been fermented that still are pretty balanced. They can help get the needle moving on that. And then this 2-methylhyperate can also be elevated due to xylene. And xylene can be in drinking water, it can be smoking, inhalation, vehicle exhaust, nail polish,
bunch of different nail polish. So xylene's one of those things that could be an issue up there as well. It's possible. We put it on the list. I mean, most people, we're trying to educate them on healthy products, good water filtration, good hygienic products. And then if we look down here below, this is gut bacteria. Now, this person only has one elevated gut bacterial metabolite. And I tell patients, like what we're looking at here, like this is typically bad bugs, usually more on the gram-negative side. It's not telling us what the bugs are. Could it be H. pylori? Could it be Klebsiella, Citrobacter? Could it be Prevotella, Morganella? It could be all those things, right? Pseudomonas. It could be. It's just looking at the exhaust. So it's like, okay, a car had their engine on. They were in the garage. They left. You show up to the house, you open the garage up, you're like, there's some exhaust in here. Like you may not be able to know, oh, that's a Ford, that's a Chevy, that's a Toyota. You may not be able to know what car it is, but you can know, okay, something was in here. Does that make sense? So it just tells us, okay, we got some exhaust of some bad bugs here. And we probably got to work on it. And now, if we have the stool test, we can know, okay, yeah, well, you also tested positive for Pseudomonas and Klebsiella and H. pylori. So that's probably what that's correlating with. I had a patient last week, had a lot of bugs and H. pylori, and there wasn't much elevated at all. I think this is the test. This is the person that had a lot of other bigger bugs, and that can happen. I tell them, we don't need both tests to confirm. Most of the time they do, and then I'd say most of the time the organic acids picks up the diarabinitol. This picks up the fungal overgrowth before the GI map or the stool test does. So it's good to have both. It's a really good marker. And then a lot of times if we see a lot of bacterial overgrowth here, that a lot of times would correlate maybe with a SIBO breath test where we do a lactulose and we blow into it for 3 hours afterwards. A lot of times we'll see a correlation on that as well.
Yeah, well said. And I think you made a great point here, which is that sometimes you're not going to get the smoking gun on this test. The stool may come in and provide better data, and vice versa. Rarely the candida shows up on the stool, though. The OAT test is always going to be better for candida, at least 98% of the time.
100%. Now, also with Indican, this may also give us a window into bile output as well as poor protein digestion. So Indican issues, usually more putrefied protein, work on HCl, of course. I'm always working on HCl anyway. I'm just giving you a little bit more of an insight. Usually with D-lactate being on the higher side, that almost always means there's a lot of extra probiotics in the system. So they may be taking a lot of lactobacillus or bifidobacter. And usually these patients may get more bloated to those kinds of probiotics. And usually that's common with SIBO. So if we see a lot of D-lactate, that can mean they're already taking a lot of probiotics, and that may be a problem. And we may want to switch to a spore-based probiotic, or even just no probiotics, and maybe even a low FODMAP diet out of the gates. Those are different things just clinically I noticed over the years. And again, when we look at this, we're taking into account the patient's adrenal tests, what's happening with their thyroid, what's happening with their gut functioning, what's happening with their lifestyle. Hey, have they had mercury fillings removed? Has there been any mold exposure? What's their diet like? What's their digestion like? Are they pooping every day? We're looking at the whole picture. So some people may look at this test totally in isolation, not good. You really want to connect it to everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to highlight there, Evan?
If you haven't had your organic acids test, reach out. Let's get it done. Let's see what's going on. This is an amazing test. If I only had like a desert island situation, I only had one test to run, I'd honestly probably pick this one. Wouldn't you, or what would you pick?
I would, because you do get a window of what's happening with the adrenals a little bit. You do get a window of what's happening with the mitochondria. And then you also get a little bit of a window in regards to what's happening in the gut and detoxification. So you get a window of a lot of different things. And I love it with kids because kids don't want to get a needle in their arm, right? And so it's really nice. This is a urine-based test. So if you want to avoid getting the blood draw, it's a really easy test to do out of the gate. So I do like that.
Awesome. And it's at home too, right? So if you got people that are elderly or just, paranoid to go out, for example, into public and go into a lab, hey, you do it at home, you get it back. I mean, how convenient does it get?
Yeah. And then also with this test, you got to be careful if you're chronically low protein. This is running it off of creatinine. So if creatinine's too low, which is a protein metabolite, you could get some false readings on the lower side. So you got to make sure there's enough protein in the system. And so if you're dealing with someone who doesn't eat much protein at all, we'll typically throw in some free form amino acids for a couple of weeks ahead of time. That way those systems at least have the substrate to move metabolically, if you will.
Yeah. Great point.
Anything else you want to say, Evan?
I don't think so. We'll give the links to people. If you enjoyed this, please let us know. I know this was kind of fast and maybe a little overwhelming because we're breaking down, but for us, this is something we do all day, every day. And of course, for your unique situation, we're going to talk you through what's going on, what you need to do, how to fix it. But give us some feedback. So like I said, if you're on Justin's YouTube channel, write in the comments, do you like these video versions? Because a lot of times you and I are just riffing on stuff, but if people like the videos, we've got so much stuff that we can uncover. We've got literally thousands of case studies we can start reviewing. If you want to see before and after, like, hey, here's a protocol we implemented, and we're not going to give you exact dosing and say, tell you to do it, but we could run you through what we do if you like it. So let us know, because we really need the feedback to help guide the show.
Yeah. And also we're trying to be different than other people that are talking about these topics because they're not in the trenches. So we're in the trenches. So, our kind of unique proposition for y'all is that we do this every day, and we want to provide valuable information that's actually actionable and it's real. It's something that this is a patient from last week that I'm talking about here. Right. And so we're trying to provide actionable information. And if you see this and you kind of get a little bit overwhelmed, It's okay. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. We've reviewed thousands of these tests. It takes a couple, dozen to kind of get your feet wet, so to speak. So just an FYI, if you get overwhelmed, not a big deal. If you work with us as patients, we typically go over these things a couple of times, and then usually patients have questions a month or two later after the test. We always go back. Part of being a great clinician is you have to be a great teacher. So if anyone feels overwhelmed with it, don't worry. We tend to take these things, boil them down, make sure you have the key action components. As long as you have the action items, that's the most important thing. And if you want to reach out to someone like myself or evanbrand.com, you can reach out to Evan. Evan has the same philosophy. You got to have a heart of a teacher. And then Just in Health, myself, Dr. J at justinhealth.com. There's links there for you guys to click. If you enjoyed it, let us know. If you want to dive in deeper, let us know. If you want to support us in any way, you can always purchase any of the labs or supplementation from our website. It goes to help fund this show and make it all possible. Evan, anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. You covered it. And please subscribe if you're not already. I looked at our statistics, and a lot of people that listen, they're not subscribed. So make sure you hit subscribe. I think with no ads and all killer, no filler content, this is a much more listenable podcast. I tried to listen to a couple of health podcasts the other day, and there was like an ad in the beginning that was like 5 minutes. And then there's like right in the middle of the conversation, there's like another ad, and then like an ad at the end. I thought, man, I think people take us for granted with our adless shows. We might have to start doing ads just to, tell us, hey, didn't you miss the ad-free days?
I know, we may have to do that. We have to switch. So if you enjoy it, let us know and support us down below. All right, Evan, phenomenal chatting with you today. We'll be back next week, everyone. Share, thumbs up, comment.